Damn. Uh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Arrow Sentinel's channel, and in this final series of the tuning for the Brocock Commander HP Magnum, we're now going to go over in detail with the entire process, or more so summary, I guess, since we talked about a few things, the reason behind them, and what to look for, what not to do, that sort of thing. So we're now going to go into the entire process, and then later on towards the middle or the end, we're going to show you the chronograph sample of what to look for. That way you can kind of have a full grasp of what and how to tune your rifle when you know what you're looking for. Again, we're going to go over the location of the, let me adjust here, okay. We're going to go the location for the, you're going to need a, I don't have it here, but a flathead screwdriver. Make sure it's a proper size, don't get it too small. Make sure it's the proper size, that way you don't strip or damage your regulator slot. And before you make any sort of adjustment, just make sure that the regulator pressure is set to 0, as well as the fill pressure. Make sure that it's 0 before you make any sort of adjustment, decrease, okay? Because like we mentioned, when your regulator springs is set to a certain volume, and then you try to minimize or decrease the pressure, you're trying to compress it by turning the screw clockwise, and in doing so, there's no way for the air to escape while you're trying to do that, and that's how it gets damaged basically, because now you're trying to compress the air that's already compressed in there, and the compression springs are not set to take that much force, and you could potentially damage your reg pressure when you try to decrease with pressure, okay? Decrease pressure. So if you were at 150 and you wanted to go to 120, and you go to decrease by going clockwise, you're going to damage it. So make sure you empty your tank first by either shooting it, which takes a bit of a time, from wherever your fill pressure is, all the way to 0. Okay, so that takes some time, but that is safe. You can do it, but it'll take some time, a lot of shooting, dry firing, so to speak. The easiest and most efficient way to do it is, like I said, take a little bit of a tool here to push this little notch, right here, okay? And then you'll be able to take your 5mm screw and unscrew this grip, okay? And after you do the grip, you just want to make sure you pay attention to the hammer spring tension, and you don't want to mess that guy up. And to take it off, like in the other video, you just slip it out, and now you'll be able to access the Allen slot. For us, like we mentioned in the previous video, we caught it wasn't notched, so we would have to always remove this body armor to get to this grub screw that's pinning down or locking down the adjustment bolt for your hammer spring, which is here. So don't cock it and then adjust it. Make sure it's decocked. And the way to do that is, if it was cocked, you would simply take it off safety and then put a little bit of tension here and pull the trigger, and you should disengage that hammer latch that's activated or deactivated rather by your trigger, and now you're decocked, okay? And that way, after you've loosened the grub screw, just leave it loose for the duration you can, for the duration, and then you can take your 5mm. Oh, by the way, it's a 2.5 millimeter Allen key, okay, to release that grub screw. And we'd shown you in the previous video what that looks like internally, okay? And then you'll be able to adjust your hammer spring, okay? And just leave it off for the duration, but if you wanted to do the entire process again without moving and removing this guy, you just perform the simple modification that we mentioned, okay? It would have been good if we had my bag or vise here, but anyway, too much clutter. And from there you kind of wanna go ahead and cut out that notch, and that way you don't have to worry about removing this over and over every time you make an adjustment, and it's much simpler. So I would highly recommend it. Okay, I would highly recommend making that notch, but again, let me know if your Commander came with a notch on it. I don't know if that was the intended purpose originally, for it to be notched or not. I think it should be, because why would they leave it like that? Anyway, that's Brocock for you, I guess. So now after you loosen the grub screw, and you've set your baseline reg pressure to start low, because you can if you start low on your reg pressure, you can always increase without losing, without having to empty your pressure. So that way you do it one time and you don't have to do it again, unless of course you realize you went too far now, and now you have to empty the tank, and now you gotta go and go clockwise to increase. Remember that it's opposite for the hammer spring tension, okay? To increase pressure, you go clockwise for the hammer spring tension, okay? And you want to go a quarter of a turn each time you make an adjustment at the regulator. And the regulator adjustment, when you kind of have the starting point and you know whereabout you want to get to, go little by little. And when I mean little, just 1/8 of a turn at a time. And then you don't have to adjust. Each time you adjust the reg pressure, don't adjust your hammer spring tension right away, because it might still be okay. It might still be just enough force. Otherwise, go a quarter of a turn each time if it's not, okay, sufficient for you. And if you realize that now your shot count have or your consistency, your standard deviation have suffered, well, go back up some on this or go forward some. And a quarter of a turn to a half a turn is good, depending on, depending on how much deviation you're at from your shot to shot consistency. But that's all there is to it, basically. Okay, so again, after you've emptied it, go to a reg pressure of your starting baseline. For example, if I were to do my rifle, I would start at, because it's a 25, I would go at either 130 or 135. To be safe, I would go at 130 and start it there and see where I like it. Okay, and then from here, you kind of say, okay, well, now I need to optimize hammer spring tension for that regulator. And the way to do that is, after you filled it, wait about 5 minutes for the, you adjusted your regulator, wait about 5 minutes for the temperature to stabilize, okay? Because a unstable or the temperature variances when you just filled your tank can give you false data, okay, and it will throw off your reading. So best to wait until it's cooled down some or stabilized some. About 5 minutes is good. Wait for it to cool. Take a break, drink or whatnot, and then you wanna fire off about 5 free shots, right? If you just made adjustments. Otherwise, if you didn't make adjustment, you don't have to fire off any free shots. Free shots meaning off the chronograph, so you don't throw off your data, because that odd temperature variance can cause you to have a false reading or irregular reading when it comes to velocity. Because air, when it's the thermal variance on the uncompressed air is different from cool to hot, obviously. Okay, so thermal expansion is what it is. Okay, so again, if you're gonna make an adjustment, after you made the adjustment, fire off 5 free shot, fill the gun back up to maximum. But I say this again, just to be clear, so we're not mixed up. You don't have to empty the tank each time you make an adjustment, only if you're decreasing power, which is clockwise. Okay, if you're decreasing, not power. Well, it actually relates to power, but not necessarily. Okay, so what I mean is, if you're decreasing pressure, regulator pressure, that's the only time you need to empty your pressures to 0 before you make any adjustments. Okay, because that can damage your regulator, and that process is clockwise. So righty tighty is to decrease or lower your regulator pressure. Okay, but it's fine with pressure if you increase pressure on your regulator. Okay, so and the only time you would need to do that is you think you've gone too far up and you need to adjust back down, then empty it and then start over. Okay, meaning start over at where you think you need to be for the reg pressure. Then of course you wait, you fire off after you made your adjustment, you fire off a few shots, the free shot, 2 to 5 free shots off the chronograph, not using the chronograph is what I mean. So that way you allow the regulator compressor springs, or in this case the washers, to stabilize, okay, and kind of acclimate to their current positions, okay, so they kind of settle in, settling the regulator pressure. Okay, then you can chronograph, fill it back up again and get it to 250. You want to always start at 250 bar or wherever your max pressure with your max setting, if you have an external adjustment. Okay, always max this out and your pressure, max it to 250 bar, wait about 5 minutes, let it settle, and then take your chronograph and start doing shots. And you want to take a look at the first 10 shots. If the 10 shots shot string of 10 shot, the standard deviation is low, like in the 2, 1 or 3 or 4, that's decent. If you're at 4, okay, that may be okay, that might be fine if it stays at 4, okay, but for a 10 shot string, 4 is actually high. You want to get to 2, okay, or 1 even if you can on a 10 shot string. And you should be single digit as well on the extreme spread for a 10 shot string. So that's what you're looking for. So you don't waste a lot of pellet. You want to shoot 10 shots on your first 10 shots. It should be pretty stable. Okay, if you notice that you're around 17 or 20 on your extreme spread and you're about 7 or 6 or 9 or 5 on your shot string, on your standard deviation, I mean, you need to readjust and then fill it back up and shoot again. Okay, there may be a time where you're in question of that shot string. For example, you may be at 12 or 13 extreme spread that your chronograph is telling you from the first 10 shots. You might be looking at your extreme spread where you're at, say, for example, 14 extreme spread and your standard deviation is maybe 4. You might be like, okay, or it might be 12, or you know, that may be the case, okay? And there are times where you question that. Well, if you kind of like, okay, is it good, is it not? Well, push it, continue to shoot to another 10 shots and see if that shot string moves. If it starts to increase from the first 10 shot, well, you need to make an adjustment, and that's either to back it off or go forward a little bit, okay? So if you're good and you think you're set, go and fill it back up, and now meaning fill the fill pressure back to maximum of 250 bar, and then wait another 5 minutes for the temperature to settle, and then do another 10 to 20 shots and see if it's the same. If it stayed the same, and you're satisfied with it, do the entire shot string, okay? But there are times where you're not satisfied and you want to make an adjustment. Fire off 2 shots after you make your adjustment to kind of let it settle some, and then you want to see if it's consistent after that. Keep shooting and see if it improved or not. Okay, when I say it improved, that's your extreme spread and your standard deviation. Okay, so you're just watching your chronograph for that, and the velocity that you want to be at for where you think that pellet should achieve. Of course, the higher velocity, the better, if it's stable, if the pellet is stable. Otherwise, full power doesn't do you any good if you're missing your target. So that's why that process is critical when you want to try to get the shot consistency. But you do have a general baseline of a certain pellet and speeds that you kind of have a good idea, and you want to play around that range. And sometimes for some of us, where we try to get every bit of velocity that it's stable, we try to push that mark some, just a little bit higher, and then we back it off when we know it starts to destabilize and POI starts to shift too much, or the pellet just destabilizes. And you doing this, you'll be able to know over time with experience what it sounds like for a hammer spring hitting that valve. It sounds nice. I mean, it sounds like a pss, pss, pss. I mean, it's just hitting the valve so perfect. It's not punching it with so much inertia that it's leaving that valve open too long, allowing more air to be wasted while your pellet is still in the chamber, or even, I mean, not in the chamber, in the barrel, and causing instability. And that's where the whole part of harmonically tuning your barrel and your velocities, air pressure, that sort of deal, all in one go. You're kind of looking for that. So after you've done your chronograph and you've gotten your standard deviation to optimum, you can't get it any better no matter what you do with your hammer spring, and you like your reg pressure setting, you like the shot count that you're getting, now you go ahead and go on the field and do 30 yards, 50, or you might be in meters. For us, we're in meters because our scope, majority of our scopes are all in meters, okay, MRAD. And so we normally go 30, 50, 70, 100, 120, 150. We try to push it and push it and push it. And you can kind of see at that point if it's not accurate, then that's where you go back, or you might bring your tools with you at the field and your chronograph and do some more adjustment. You may have to back it off some. Okay, you might have to increase some. Depends, okay? Because just because you have power doesn't mean it's the best velocity for your rifle or your pellet. Okay, your barrel may not like a certain, because of the twist rates and the rifling, it may not be as stable as you think it should be at that particular stuff. If you got people telling you, oh, it should be accurate at this velocity, and you try it and you try to tell yourself that it should be because some 10, 20 people tried it and it's good. Well, guess what? Not all barrels are the same, even if it's the exact same barrel, same model. They shoot differently. It just depends on you know, how well it's made and the imperfections can cause that. And you know, when you're down to standard deviation of 2 and 3 across, or even 4 across a 70 shot string before you fall off the regulator, you're great. I mean, to me, you should be consistent. Okay, but if your pellet is not consistent, then it might be destabilizing. And another good tool, which is not required, is a high-speed camera. They come expensive, where you can start to, you know, mess with the frame rates and slow it down some and see your pellet trajectory, and if what it's doing, if it's bouncing around, or you know, the spin drift is moving about, causing it to destabilize and throwing you off your POA and your your POI rather. So that's the process in its entirety, and you want to shoot it to validate it. And if it's good in the chronograph, doesn't necessarily mean it's good on the field. You need to test that, okay? And don't get frustrated, because that time in the field could be variances where, again, wind conditions. Okay, so wait for a good day. If you're able to go shoot indoors, if it's available to you folks, you shoot it indoors at an indoor range. Okay, that's best for when you're tuning. But if you don't have that luxury of indoor range that has that distance, shoot it in the field. And you know, you might have to dope some for windage and elevation or whatnot. But you know, when you got consistent wind, it's fine, because you can pretty much know what the wind is doing. But if you got gust and turbulence condition, you know, don't get frustrated. But that's basically, in short, what you need to do in order to tune your rifle. Standard deviation, a chronograph is key. You cannot do any sort of tuning without a chronograph. You could, right, I mean, they've done it for many years in the past without a chronograph, but it is a good tool. You could, but it's very, very frustrating, long process. I mean, much longer process, because now you gotta keep shooting, and pellets tend to get expensive after a while. So what you wanna do is use the chronograph to be more effective and efficient. It's quick. I mean, it just makes some simple adjustment, tune it, tighten it, loosen it, whatever, and shoot it, and see your shot strings and where your extreme spread is, and your standard deviation and your velocity, and you want to note that down. Or if your chronograph or laptop can take that data, save it, so you have a history of where you need to be. For us, we have a chronograph that can go directly to our phone via a Bluetooth module, and it just captures all of that on our phone, and it's quick for us, it's easy, and we kind of it's very useful, especially in the field, and you know, other apps that we incorporate into our hunting or target practice with ballistic drop compensation, or bullet drop compensation, whatever you call it. Okay, so that's in short what you need to do. And once you've settled for the correct hammer spring tension, correct regulator, now don't forget to snug up. And when I say snug up, take your 2.5 millimeter wrench, and just now you want to go ahead and just very light, don't punch it down, because you're gonna mess up your threads, because that grub screw is against threads. Okay, so all you're doing is minimizing vibration movement from it coming loose. Okay, so you wanna go back and tighten that grub screw a little, and you're pretty much done at that point. That's pretty much there is to it. And now we're gonna show you a short clip of a chronograph data with various rifles, what it's doing, as well as especially on the chronograph data for the Brocock Commander, and where we said it. Again, power isn't everything, accuracy is everything, okay? It's even better if you can have both, you know, maximum power and maximum, but for us, the process was we compromised power. This gun is capable of 59 to 60 foot-pound of energy if you set it properly, okay? And it's still fairly efficient on shot counts. But, okay, the reason why we didn't optimize. Alright, so what I was saying was the camera shut off a little bit because of the amount of space. But anyway, what I was saying is we could optimize for power, but because we wanted to still shoot the other pellets that this gun likes, we went down just a little. We compromised power, okay? Accuracy should be your optimum priority, okay? That is your highest priority, should be anyway. So we were able to compromise power, and by doing that we also increased shot count, okay? And then with increasing shot count, lowering the power from 59 to 60 FPE, and we went 54 and 55 FPE, we were still able to shoot the MK2 JSB King Heavies accurately, and the velocities that we like, and it was still pretty stable anyway. And now we wanted to also shoot with the other pellet that this rifle likes, with setting the adjustments. And because we know that there's only a certain adjustment range within velocity, the velocities doesn't vary too much between level to level in the 6 levels power levels that this gun has. We've kind of worked our way to where, okay, this pellet that we want to shoot in this rifle likes to be at this velocity, so, or should be at this velocity, so we want to be able to capture within that range, a certain range of velocities at power levels, depending on the grain, of course, you kind of know. So we wanted to broaden that up, and we don't sacrifice too much pellets. And for those of you that don't have adjustment settings, like on a rifle, like our Hatsan Neutron Star doesn't have external adjustment, you just have to optimize for that one pellet or 2 pellets that the rifle likes, and if it likes it at that stuff, and you know, and you may have to readjust your hammer spring and retune again if you want to shoot a certain pellet. That's the only drawback to that. That's why I wish more rifles have the valve adjustment, power level adjustments, quick adjustment. That would make guns like this great, you know, if they shoot well, if form and function follows. So hopefully that'll do it. Now we're gonna go over, before completing this video, we're gonna go over and show you a clip of chronograph data, and let you know kind of what we do, what we look at, and how we go about understanding those data, okay? So that way you have an understanding what we were talking about earlier when we were looking at graphs and data, all right? So that's it for now, watch the hang tight, watch the rest of the video for the chronograph data clip, and subscribe, click the like or dislike button, and whatever, and good on you. Have a good day. Easy. Alright.
People on YouTube, you call me a homo, but you think I stand by this? Well, that shit is a no-go. You're all coming one, because what